Jackie here, and welcome back to my channel. Today I will be walking you through sewing up one of these super cute twist headbands. I am wearing one as well. There's not a pattern. This is just, we just take a rectangle and sew it up, and I will be giving you the measurements that I use, that I like to use for my head, and I do find that it works pretty well for most others, but if needed, you can adjust it to make it fit your head after trying this one out. And it might depend a little bit on the fabric you use, but all you're going to need is some knit fabric and a sewing machine or serger. I prefer to use a double brush poly or a ribbed knit for these, but you can use any fabric as long as it is stretchy. And I will be going through all of the steps on how you can use a serger or a sewing machine to complete this. I use a serger and a sewing machine, which I think gives the best results. But if you have only a serger or only a sewing machine, this is still something that you can do. So let's get started. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is you're going to take your knit fabric, and I am using a ribbed knit so you can kind of see. So this is the grain of the fabric, and the stretch goes opposite of the grain. So you want the stretch way with the most stretch is going to be your longest side. So I prefer to do 18 inches long and 7 inches high. So you can make it a little bit longer or shorter or wider depending on your personal preference, but that's just my preference. So you're going to take whatever knit fabric you have and you're using and cut out your rectangle in your preferred side. So once you have your rectangle cut out, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take it and fold it in half like a hot dog with right sides together, and you're going to line up your raw edges up here. And so now what you're going to do is you're going to go over to either, if you're using a sewing machine, you will need to use a stretch stitch, which is a zigzag, or any of your other stretch stitches on your machine. A zigzag will work fine, but I wouldn't recommend it if you have other options. So you can look at your machine for other stretch stitches, but like I said, a zigzag will work. Or you can also use your serger. So I'm going to go ahead, if I have a serger, I am just going to sew all the way along this straight edge. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. All right, so now I have sewn this edge here. You can see, and so I now have a tube, and these ends again are open. We did not sew these. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to come to one of the open ends, and I am going to turn this right side out. So I'm just going to come in and pull here and flip it over, and then I'm going to lay it flat and make it so that my seam is in the middle here. So I don't want it on the edge or anything. I want it to be laying flat and about as in the middle as you can get it. All right, so once you have your seam down the middle, it doesn't have to be exact or perfect, it's not a huge deal, but this part is going to be the most important part to make sure that your twist is lying correctly and that your seam is not showing when you are wearing it. So what you're going to do is you're going to take one end and you are going to kind of twist it here. I'm going to lay them next to each other like that so you can see. So there's my center seam and there's my center seam, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this top piece, I'm going to take this folded edge and line it up with my seam here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my top section, and at that seam I'm going to fold it around that top one. So now this side here is sandwiched in between these with the seam on top. So having the seams showing is the most important part. And so you can see here, so there's that seam, and I have this piece sandwiched in here, and you want the raw edges on all of them to be about as lined up as possible. Okay, so now that we're here, so now we're back here. You have this seam here. You're going to then wrap that around the back of here. So now you'll have all four of those folded, so your seam should be here, and your other seam should be here. Now, if you don't see one of those seams on the side, your headband is going to come out twisted. So what you're going to do, once you have all of those, you can either pin or clip or however you wish, but we are going to now sew along this edge. For best results, what you're going to want to do is you are going to want to sew a straight stitch in like a rounded kind of like a half circle stitch here. If you have a sewing machine to do a straight stitch, that's what I would recommend. It'll lay the nicest. If you only have a serger, you can go ahead and serge over this. It is thick. We have 8 layers of fabric sandwiched in here, so you just want to make sure you go slow and you get all of those layers in there. But I'm going to go ahead and go on my sewing machine and sew that half circle, and I'll be back. Alright, so I used a red thread so that you could see it a little bit better. It is still hard to see, I know, but so you can see my arc. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just kind of to give it a little bit more rounded, and the highest point being in the center there. Just, it's going to make it lay nicer when you have it on. And one thing I did forget to say, because this is so thick, you might need some sort of hump jumper, or you might just have to really kind of push this in and help feed it to get it started when you're sewing, and you want to back stitch at the front and the back of that to secure those ends. So the very last thing we're going to do now, if you serged it, you are just going to tie off your ends and you will be done. If you used a straight stitch, what you want to do now is you want to trim this seam and get rid of that bulk. So I'm just going to take my scissors here and go as close as I can to that stitching. I'm not going to get super close because I don't want it to pull apart. But you can see there's my stitching, and it's just about a couple millimeters there left. Then what you're going to do, and then you just take it, you're going to kind of flip it and pull it so that it lays nicely, and now you will have a super nice twist headband. And so if you have it, you serged it, you might just have some issues with that serged edge showing, so you just want to be careful when you put it on. But there you have it, your perfect and simple twist headband. Alright, and we are now done, and you have your super cute headband, and I love these. I wear them all the time. They're so comfortable. I wear them to the gym, wear them for everything. So now you can kind of see if it's too tight on your head, you can make your rectangle a little bit longer. If you want it to be wider on your head, you can make your rectangle a little bit wider, and you can kind of play with it to find your perfect measurements. But I hope that this video was helpful, and I hope that you make so many of these headbands, and I hope that you love them. If you have any questions, or if you like this video, let me know in the comments. And if you try this pattern and you post anything on Instagram, make sure you tag me at Sobex so I can see all your creations. And like and subscribe to my channel so that you're notified whenever I release new videos. Bye!